Ma'am, we are starting.
Yeah, please.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning, ma'am. My topic for today is mechanical ventilation in COVID patients under moderation of Dr. Shweta, ma'am. So, what is mechanical ventilation? Ma'am, first 20 slides is the core of my talk in further ARDS talk. So, I like everyone to be very attentive in first 20 slides. All the maneuvers which we do in ARDS patient, PEEP, how to set the PEEP is all set in first 20 slides. So, so what is mechanical ventilation? So mechanical ventilation, it is called mechanical because it's a technique in which energy is supplied in a predetermined way to augment or replace the patient's muscle. And ventilation because it's an artificial provision of gases to the lung for exchange. So there are four basic ventilators terms which we need to know. First is the target. What do we mean by target? We give our ventilator a certain target, either volume or pressure. So my ventilator has to deliver that target. In pressure control mode, it could be pressure target, and in volume control mode, it is the volume targeted breaths. What is conditional variable? Supposedly my ventilator is delivering a target of 500 ml of volume. So the variable will be pressures. And if I have set a pressure control mode, then my variable will be volume. That means then comes a trigger to start every breath. Or either it could be completely controlled or it could be triggered by a patient. This would be pressure triggered or flow triggered or time triggered. This is the initiation of the inspiration. And cycling off means when to end the inspiration and start exhalation. And cycling could be due to volume, like supposedly my ventilator has reached a certain target of volume, it will cycle off. And for pressure control, it has reached a certain pressure, it will cycle off. So in this is a volume assist control mode. So I want to clarify this. Any graph which goes in the negative form is a flow versus time graph. These are the scalars which we see on the ventilator screen in our ICUs. So anything which goes in the negative is a flow scalar, flow versus time scalar. So in volume control mode, we are keeping our volume target. So we have a constant volume which has been delivered versus a constant variable, that is the pressure. That is, my pressure will vary according to deliver that volume, my pressure will vary. So this is the pressure graph. This is a pressure control mode. Now my pressure is the target. So my pressure will remain constant throughout. My pressure is constant. My variable is my volume now. So it will deliver a variable volume. So by this I mean if we are put a patient on volume control, always look for pressures. Always monitor the pressures. And if my patient is on pressure control, always monitor the tidal volume, what we are delivering. So there are 10 basics ventilator terminology which we'll see on the ventilator screen. First being the peak inspiratory flow. This means once I have delivered, my ventilator is delivering the breath. It will have to overcome a resistance first of the ET tube. First the ET tube and then the airways. So it will reach a peak inspiratory pressure. It will have to overcome a pressure. That is the peak inspiratory flow. So as the definition says, it's the maximum pressure in the airways at the end of the inspiratory phase and generated at the time of airflow. Both airway and resistance and compliance is calculated in this. In ARDS patients, always keep a peak inspiratory flow less than 35 centimeters of water. So what is passive pressure? So once the air has been delivered, we keep an inspiratory pause or an inspiratory hold, which is available in our ICU ventilators to hold the air which we have already delivered. Supposedly we keep an inspiratory hold minimum of 0.3 seconds. So that will be the plateau pressure. If my alveolus is not compliant, that pressure will be more. So it is to differentiate between the resistance problem or a compliance problem.
Okay.
So as we can see in the image on left hand side is without inspiratory pause. That means my ventilator has delivered the breath, but it's not holding in the alveolus. So my pressure graph goes directly up and comes down directly. Now, maximum time, even in our OT ventilators, we keep an inspiratory pause. So as we can see on the right hand side picture, we have a peak inspiratory flow. Then we added a inspiratory pause. Then we get a plateau pressure. So my peak inspiratory flow, as I already explained, depends upon resistance and compliance both. And plateau pressure is only dependent on compliance of the lungs, or compliance of the alveoli. So if my compliance is bad, my plateau pressure will be high, which is the case in COVID ARDS. So this is a pictorial diagram of what is peak inspiratory flow and what is plateau pressure. In this, I am delivering air. There is air flow. That's why we get a peak inspiratory flow. And once I've held the breath for 0.3 seconds or 0.4 seconds, then we get a plateau pressure. This is the pressure versus time graph, which I'm showing above.
Okay.
These are some of the examples which we can see on the ventilator. Supposedly, if it's a resistance problem, that is my ET tube is too narrow or there is mucus plugging, then my
can you show the previous slide again?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And just explain all those alveoli which you have shown.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. So this is a normal alveoli. My breath has not been initiated at present. The first image. Secondly, I gave my patient a breath. There is airflow, which so there will be a peak inspiratory pressure. There is presence of airflow now. Now I'll give my patient an inspiratory hold. So by giving inspiratory hold, whatever breath I give will be held in the alveolus. So which will determine the compliance of the alveoli. So this here is a plateau pressure. Only when we put an inspiratory hold, we'll get a plateau pressure. This is very important when we'll talk about COVID ARDS ventilatory strategy. Just remember, we need inspiratory flow. And if my peak inspiratory flow is high, always give a patient inspiratory hold to determine whether we are dealing with a resistance problem or a compliance problem. And ma'am, can I move?
Yeah, please, please, please. And the last one is during expiration, right?
Yes, ma'am. Last one is expiration, ma'am. The air has flow go now.
Just explain everything, huh, Simar?
So now, supposedly I get a peak inspiratory pressure more than 35, which is the upper limit. Now I want to determine whether my patient is a high resistance, like which can happen in initial phases. So whether I'm dealing with a resistance problem or a compliance problem. If after giving a plateau inspiratory pause, my plateau pressures are less than 30, or there is a large difference between peak and plateau pressure. Mostly we are dealing with a resistance problem. That could be kinked ET tube or a mucus plugging, which is very much common in ARDS patient because of and bronchospasm. But in COVID ARDS, mostly we are dealing with a low compliance thing. That is, we'll have a high peak inspiratory flow as well as a high plateau pressure. So ARDS will be a low compliance, high peak inspiratory flow and a high plateau pressure. The other causes could be mainstem atelectasis. Atelectasis is also very much common in ARDS. This is the reason why our patient is hypoxic in this thing, ARDS and pulmonary edema. So these three are the main criteria why we are classifying COVID ARDS as low compliance. So next thing is PEEP, that is positive end expiratory pressure. It helps prevent atelectasis. It is the positive pressure that remains at the end of the exhalation. So I'll be explaining PEEP, value of PEEP or the importance of PEEP in ARDS a bit later when we'll be talking about COVID ARDS especially. So just to summarize, the PEEP which we keep from ventilator is known as extrinsic PEEP. And if my patient is generating PEEP from himself, it will be known as intrinsic PEEP, also known as IPEEP. So supposedly, we see a ventilator screen like this. Ma'am, the above graph, the below graph is the pressure versus time scalar. Middle one is a flow versus time scalar. Above one is a volume versus time scalar.
Good.
So supposedly in a volume versus time scalar, we can only detect air trapping in volume versus time scalar. If we see that my expiration is not going till zero, as we can see in this image, ma'am. then I'll think that my patient is having a auto generation of PEEP, that is intrinsic PEEP. So to detect that, I'll put my patient in expiratory hold. This is also a feature of our ventilator ICUs, ICU ventilators, that it gives us the option to put expiratory hold. So this patient, as we can see, my patient was not exhaling properly. So we give this patient an expiratory pause. We were giving a PEEP of 10. This is an actual ventilator screen from our ICU. We were giving a PEEP of 10, but we were getting a total PEEP of 29, meaning my patient was having an intrinsic PEEP of 19. So yes, in this case, we know we have to see a ventilatory strategies, whether we are giving large tidal volumes or the I's to E ratio is not good enough, or my patient is having some air trapping, like in case of COPD or in asthma patients. This can happen in ARDS patients as well, because we are recruiting them with higher PEEPs. So probably we have kept a very high PEEP or less I's to E ratio. So driving pressure. Driving pressure is the difference between my plateau pressure and my PEEP. So supposedly my plateau pressure, like like example in this, patient having plateau pressure of 30 with a PEEP of 10. So plateau pressure minus PEEP 20. So my 20 is the driving pressure. So what is the advantage of driving pressure? This is the pressure that will be exerted to expand the lungs. The upper limit which we can keep in ARDS patient is, we should keep it less than 30. And the best is less than 50 or 15 or equal to 15 centimeters of water is the best driving pressure we can keep for ARDS patients. Then the inspiratory time. That is the time allotted to deliver the set tidal volume or the set pressure, which like the target we are giving. And the expiratory time is also like the time we give to fully exhale. I want to mention, like I already mentioned about auto PEEP. If my inspiration time is very less, I can generate auto PEEP without my patient having a restrictive lung disease or asthma or COPD. I can give auto PEEP because of this, because of my inspiratory time, less inspiratory time. So I's to E ratio, that is the inspiratory to expiratory ratio. Usually it is kept at 1:2 or 1:3. But the significance in ARDS is we keep inverse ratio. We keep 1:1. So why I's to E ratio is very much important to us in ARDS. Okay. So I'll be explaining that in this peak inspiratory flow. So what is peak inspiratory flow? Supposedly I am delivering a tidal volume of 500 ml. So that 500 ml will be delivered with a velocity of with a rate of 60 liters per minute to the patient. So that how fast my tidal volume is getting delivered to the patient. The faster I give, the less work of breathing my patient will have. So if my ventilator, I change my ventilatory strategy to 1:3, then I am giving less time for inspiration and more time for expiration. My ventilator senses this thing and increase the speed with which that 500 ml of volume has to be given. So as we can see, as we decrease the inspiratory time or as we increase the expiratory time, my inspiratory flow rate is increasing. And in ARDS, we usually keep at 1:1. So my flow rate is decreasing 50 liters per minute. So this is very much important, especially when we'll be talking about high flow nasal cannulas. My normal ventilator, we cannot set the peak inspiratory flow. We can only manipulate it by decreasing or increasing the inspiratory time. We cannot set it on the ventilator that how much peak inspiratory flow we should give to the patient. We can only manipulate it. And a normal spontaneously breathing person will have a peak inspiratory flow of 20 to 30 liters per minute. While on a ventilator, it should be minimum 60 liters. It's the best ventilatory strategy. So tidal volume. Next thing, we should not deliver the tidal volume according to the actual weight of the patient. We should use a predicted body weight and then find the tidal volume. So for males, the formula is 50 plus 2.3 into height in inches minus 60. And for females, rest is same, the only 50 factor is decreased to 45. So this is very much important because we don't we don't want to overinflate the lungs in ARDS. We should always use a predicted body weight and not the actual weight of the patient for delivering the tidal volume. Then respiratory rate, minute ventilation. Respiratory rate is the frequency of breaths we are keeping on the ventilator. Minute ventilation is tidal volume into respiratory rate. So the importance of this in ARDS is many of the times when I'll be talking, we decrease the tidal volume for the patient in ARDS. So to maintain the minute ventilation, we increase the respiratory rate. I'll be talking that in ARDS, COVID ARDS. But the significance of discussing minute ventilation is this. We have to maintain a minute ventilation to prevent hypercarbia. And then the FiO2. FiO2 is very much important. This is the fraction of the percentage of oxygen we are taking in. Room air contains 21% and a mechanical ventilator can deliver as high as 100%. But we should not deliver 100%. It can cause oxygen toxicity as well. So these are some of the basic modes of ventilators. But specifically for COVID, I'll be talking about only COVID, like in COVID patients, what we use. Yes. Our ICU ventilators are not fully controlled ventilators. It always has the option of assist. So either it could be volume assist, pressure assist, or pressure support. These are the main ventilator strategies we'll be using in COVID ARDS patients. So as I've already explained, volume assist and pressure assist, but pressure support, as I already explained in volume control mode, the cycling will be when my target has been achieved and my target was volume. In pressure assist, my target was like pressure and we set up inspiratory time. But the only difference now is what is this percentage of peak? It is a very important thing in pressure support system. I'll be talking that pressure like percentage peak in a while, but we won't get how to set flows. Then what my ventilator will show me to set. So my ventilator will give me the following modes or the following parameters to set. So if I have, sorry ma'am. So if I put my patient on volume control mode or volume assist control mode, I'll be setting frequency for the patient, tidal volume for the patient, inspiratory pause for getting the plateau pressure and the FiO2. If I am using a pressure control mode, the ventilator will give me the options of setting the frequency, the pressures, maximum pressures which I want to achieve, the inspiratory time, rise time, and FiO2. So what is rise time? Rise time is in how much time my pressure will be delivered. So we should keep it at the minimal. That should be less than like 0.1 seconds or 0.2 seconds. I don't want to increase the work of breathing for the patient. My patient should get the pressure at a very early rate so that he can achieve his tidal volume. And if I have put my patient on pressure support mode, the things we'll get is pressure, how much pressure should we give above peak, rise time, same, better setup. If my patient is not able to meet my criteria of support, then my patient will go back to the control mode automatically. Then the only difference is inspiratory cycling. So what is the cycle criteria of pressure support? These are the same images which I showed earlier. Volume assist, this is volume assist. This is pressure assist. Now, this is pressure support. So the criteria for pressure support cycling is percentage. Supposedly my patient has taken 50% of his breath. I have set my ventilator at 50%. My patient, as we can see in the below, this is a flow versus time scalar. My patient is still breathing and my ventilator has cycled it off. That is at 50%. And simultaneously, if I change my ventilator settings to 25, my patient is still breathing, but at 25% of my breath, it will exhale. The ventilator will start exhalation. So what is the significance of this in COVID ARDS? Supposedly, I have kept my peak in cycling at 50%. My patient will hypoventilate. I have set my inspiratory time at less. So my patient can have hypercarbia due to my ventilatory settings. So this should be kept in mind. So for all my juniors, the settings come in the additional settings of the support system. Always go for the additional settings. There's a button in our ICU ventilators, additional settings, in which you can set these things. If your patient is getting hypercarbic after you are starting weaning, you should always look for these things. So now coming to the COVID ARDS. So my goal is to prevent secondary lung injury. My patient is already having a hemorrhagic, bogus, or of edematous lung. I don't want to injure the lung further on. So how we can do it? The term is lung protective ventilatory strategies. So which include a tidal volume of 4 to 8. We start ventilator at a setting tidal volume of 6 ml per kg. A respiratory rate is always kept high, as I already told you, to maintain the minute ventilation. A PEEP initially is kept at 8 and a FiO2 is decreased as tolerated, and we should maintain a saturation of 92%. So what is the role of PEEP in COVID ARDS? This is utmost importance in ventilatory strategies. So it can help us or it can worsen the patient up as well. So it's a double-edged sword, as I already wrote. Why? This is, as we can see, the atelectasis or the atelectatic alveoli. This is the one which we get in COVID ARDS. The compliance of this alveolus is very low. So my patient will have high peak, high plateau pressure. I gave him some PEEP to reach an optimal level of opening of the alveolus, and I reached a good compliance. My peak and plateau pressure will decrease. But over enthusiastic PEEP will over distend my alveoli, which will further on decrease my compliance and which will cause harm to the patient. As we can see in image 3 as well, as I am over distending, the image 3 is an over distending alveolus. As I increase PEEP, over distend my alveolus, it will compress the vessels. So first of all, it will decrease my venous return first. Second will increase my ICP. Third, decrease the gaseous exchange. So it is of no use for my patient. Even though I am giving PEEP of 8 or 9, it is of no use for the patient. There is no gaseous exchange. Rather, the patient will go into hypotension due to this. In this image 2, we can see a normal alveolus or already over distended alveolus, a fluid fill or atelectatic. As we're giving PEEP, we can see there is increase, but over distended will become more distended. So we should always, I'll tell you how to set the PEEP, how to determine what is the best PEEP for the patient. So image on left is a CT scan of a COVID ARDS patient. So we have demarcated it. This is the anterior part. My patient is lying supine in this. My patient was supine. This is the vertebra. So my patient is supine. We can see we have a normal aerated anterior part, but my posterior or my dorsal alveolus are atelectated. So supposedly I am giving a higher PEEP. We can just come to image on the right hand side. This is my PEEP, 0 PEEP. My patient is lying supine. My dorsal alveolus are closing, but my anterior alveoli are open. This is the main criteria COVID makes. But if I give PEEP to my patient, my already opened up alveolus will become over distended, but will also open up my atelectasis alveolus. But we don't want this over distension. We can see this again in this image as well. This is a patient with 0 PEEP. My image on left is 0 PEEP. The dark purple thing is collapsed, and my light purple thing is overinflated. This is when I have applied 0 PEEP, I have more of collapsed lung. But as I apply more and more PEEP, there is more of over distension. Rather than opening up the alveoli, I'll make my patient worse due to hypotension and something, and hypoxia as well, because there is less gaseous exchange. So what can I do that I don't over distend my already opened up alveoli, and I also open up my atelectatic alveolus? So to overcome this thing, we have recruitment maneuvers. This is recruitment of my atelectatic alveolus, not my already opened up alveolus. So initially, it was thought to be periodically increasing the tidal volume. It is no longer used as a recruitment maneuver. Then came the sustained inflation method, that is PEEP. We keep at PEEP out for 40 seconds, but still it was found to be very dangerous for the patient, and it leads to barotrauma and something. A modification of the second point came out to be a pressure control, that is progressively increasing the PEEP. This I'll be explaining, and the best method is prone. I'll be explaining the third point and the fourth point. My third point is a modification of my second point. So, but before I put my patient in recruitment maneuvers, always sedate and paralyze the patient. Always, because my patient won't be able to tolerate, if my patient is awake, he won't be able to tolerate that much of PEEP. And secondly, I won't be able to maintain the pressures which I want. I'll be explaining the next slide. Second, my patient should be hemodynamically stable, not very much hemodynamically unstable, because PEEP will cause hypotension. Then there should be there should not be any contraindication. That is, my patient is already having a pneumothorax, and then there is no role of giving recruitment maneuvers. I will worsen the patient rather than improving the patient's condition. So yes, how to find the best PEEP? This is the third point which I discussed there. So how to determine what will be the best PEEP for my patient? So if my patient is on volume control, take the patient on pressure control first of all. Why pressure control? Because I can set the maximum pressure which I want to give to my patient. Once my pressures have been, I have converted my patient to pressure control, I'll set my maximum pressure at 25 and set a PEEP of 10. If you remember, I described driving pressure as plateau pressure minus this PEEP. So in this 25 minus 10, it will be 15, which I discussed is the best driving pressure which I can keep for an ARDS patient. Okay, so I have kept a plateau pressure of 25. So to tell you plateau, we can't differentiate plateau or peak pressure in pressure control. What we are delivering is the plateau pressure only in pressure control. So we keep a max pressure of 25 and a PEEP of 10, making a driving pressure of 15. So now I progressively increase my PEEP. So secondly, I increase my PEEP till 20. As we can see in the second image, I've increased my PEEP to 20, but my maximum pressure also increased till 35, maintaining a driving pressure of 15. Because as we increase PEEP, my pressures will increase. Still, my driving pressure is 15. I'll keep this settings for 2 minutes, see whether my patient is improving, and then increase my plateau PEEP at 25. Keep it for 2 minutes, keep it at 35, and the max, then keep it at 45. Wait for 2 to 3 minutes. This is my recruitment phase. This is my recruitment phase. Now I want to set at what PEEP my. So by recruitment phase means I have opened up my atelectatic alveolus. Okay, I have opened it up. But what is the best? I can't keep it at 45. I can't keep my PEEP at 45. It is very dangerous for the patient. I have to decrease it and set it at a value which is best for the patient. Okay, so how to do it? Next, I'll decrease my PEEP at 25, take the ABG, see what is the oxygenation, what is the partial pressure of O2 and CO2. Okay, see the values, see the hemodynamic of the patient. Decrease it down to 20. Wait for some time, take the ABG, we'll see the value and decrease it down to 15. Supposedly my values at 20 PEEP was the best. My patient was having a saturation of 90, 94, 95. And when I decreased it at 15 PEEP, my patient had a saturation of 90 and ABGs are also bad. Means 20 is the best PEEP which I can keep for my patient. This is the way you set PEEP in COVID ARDS or in any type of ARDS actually. But so second is how prone positioning will help my recruitment. How prone positioning will help recruiting my atelectatic alveolus. So when my patient is lying supine, weight of the heart plus the upward force of my abdomen and my diaphragm will close my posterior or my dorsal alveolus, which are already closed, making my ventilation more difficult. So if make my patient prone, I can see the first thing, the weight of the heart is gone from the lungs. Then we can explain in the next slide. The upper image is when my patient is lying supine. You can see my interior alveolus, which are open. If I am applying my PEEP, it is getting over distended. And my dorsal alveolus, which were collapsed, are not opening very well. Plus, we can see there is ventilation up, but there is less perfusion as my patient is lying supine. So this will lead to shunting. It's not a good thing for my patient. This is one of the reasons why my patient is hypoxic initially. What if my patient, I make my patient supine, prone? We can see in this weight of the heart is gone. My dorsal alveolus are now opening without over distending my already opened up anterior alveolus. So this is the best strategy, as we should apply both titrated PEEP and prone positioning together to for the best betterment of my patient. But not all patients are candidates of recruitment maneuver. What are the contraindications of recruitment maneuvers? One being hemodynamically unstable. There is increased ICP. As I already explained, my overdistension will cause positive pressure and will decrease the venous return from the lower limbs as well as from head. So it will increase the ICP. My patient is already having a pneumothorax. There is no point of giving a higher PEEPs. My patient is predisposition of barotrauma, like a bullous lung, like a COPD patient getting COVID. I will avoid that much high PEEP. And yes, this is a very important point. ARDS more than 1 week. So all the recruitment maneuvers will only and only work if I have put my patient on ventilatory support in first 7 days. After that, my recruitment maneuvers are of no use. My patient will not respond to my recruitment maneuvers. This is the golden period. 7 days is the golden period for recruiting the lung. Yes. Okay, now I'm giving my patient recruitment maneuvers. When to discontinue? Supposedly my patient blood pressure started decreasing. I reached a PEEP of 30 and my patient's blood pressure started decreasing by 30 mmHg. I'll stop my recruitment maneuver, decrease my PEEP. Second is my saturation started decreasing. So why my patient saturation will decrease? Because of over distension. If saturation is getting decreased, means my alveolus is over distended. There is less gaseous exchange now. Heart rate started increasing. Like when my blood pressure will decrease, my heart will increase. And arrhythmias. So we discontinue the recruitment maneuvers and taken on the previous settings. So what are the adverse effects which we can see while we are doing the recruitment maneuvers? We can have hypotension, that is 12%, desaturation, barotrauma, arrhythmias. We can also have ventilator-induced lung injuries, but it is difficult to quantify because my patient is already having a injurious lung. So it is not well documented. And then increased ICP. Yes. So I'll be dealing with actual ventilator screens of ARDS patients in the next 5 slides. So if I see a ventilator screen like this, we should ask us 3 questions. Are we using lung protective ventilation? Are my pressures high? And if yes, what should be my next step? So yes, ma'am. Ma'am, as we can see in this slide, we are using a frequency of 22. Yes. We are keeping a FiO2 of 100, a tidal volume of 330, which for my patient was going at a rate of 6.3 ml per kg. That is the initial, which I told you should be started at 6 ml per kg. And I have kept a PEEP of 18, that is higher PEEP. So yes, we are using lung protective ventilation in this screen. Second question, are my pressures high? Yes, my pressures are high. My peak pressure is above 35. The maximum limit which we can keep is 35. That's the maximum thing. Yes, my patient is having a high pressure. So what should be my next step for this patient? As I already explained, if my peak pressure is high, now I want to see what I'm dealing with, whether I'm dealing with a resistance problem or a compliance problem, which is only determined if I see the plateau pressures, which is seen by inspiratory pause. So the next step will be put an inspiratory pause for this patient. We can see in this flow graph as well, there is no inspiratory pause at present for this patient. So we put an inspiratory pause for this patient, and this was his ventilatory screen after that. We put an inspiratory pause, we can see plateau pressure. Plateau pressure is mentioned here, it is 32. Yes, it is well above 30. And the difference between peak and plateau is also very less. We are dealing with a compliance problem. This patient had ARDS. So yes, we differentiated. Yes, we are dealing with a compliance problem. So what should be the next line of management for these type of patients? The first thing we should do is decrease the tidal volume. Many of the patient responds to decreased tidal volume. Just keep an eye on minute ventilation. Whenever we are decreasing the tidal volume, always keep an eye on minute ventilation. So we can see in this patient, we were delivering a tidal volume of 6.35 ml per kg. We'll decrease it down to 5. We can go as low as 4 ml per kg in ARDS. But not all my patient will show a rosy picture like this. What if my patient is showing a ventilator screen of this? This is also actual ventilator screen from ICU. My patient is completely desynchronous. I cannot see any graph which is well formed. Plus the tidal volume which I was giving to my patients was 380. My patients were taking 790 or 800 ml of tidal volume, which is a big no, in ARDS. This is a lung injurious strategy. If my patient is desynchronous with the ventilator, yes, it's time to add sedation or add a neuromuscular blockade for this patient. We should, say neuromuscular blockade or sedation should be always or added in a very initial phase for these patients, so that my patient doesn't have an increased work of breathing. This much tidal volume, 780 or 800 ml of tidal volume will increase work of breathing. So always now, this is the patient should added neuromuscular blockade or sedation should be added. This is again a ventilator screen showing my patient is desynchronous. Yes, my patient is having a very high peak pressure, 54. So in this patient, we gave an inspiratory pause, and we found out that our plateau pressure was just 28. It was just 28 for this patient. So which is less than 30. And yes, my plateau pressure is not raised. So this patient came with ARDS, but yes, this patient didn't have a compliant problem. This patient has a resistance problem now. So as I already explained, yes, if we are dealing with a resistance problem, we should go for an expiratory pause. Just look at his flow versus time scalar. My patient is not fully exhaling. He's having some type of auto peep, as we can see here. It is not going till baseline. I don't know whether you can see it, but my patient is not going till baseline. So if I'm dealing with a resistance problem, my next step is expiratory pause to check the total peep. So this patient was given an expiratory pause, and yes, we were delivering him a peep of 10 and he was getting a peep of 29. So next time, as you can see in this slide, we were delivering him a tidal volume of 400 and something. So we decreased tidal volume, we increased respiratory rate, and this patient was treated on compliance problem guidelines actually. So if we are putting our patient on, if we have intubated the patient, that only moment we should start thinking when to extubate the patient. Ventilator is not a treatment. It only buys us some time. So if my work of my ventilator is done, we should try thinking weaning or extubating the patient. So the number one goal of mechanical ventilation is to get the patient off the ventilator. We should daily assess the patient whether he's able to extubate and whether my patient is stable enough to extubate. If not, then we don't go for extubation. So what do we screen before we start weaning him or we start liberating him? Surgical procedure, this is not relevant as we don't perform surgeries in COVID patients. So next, all the things is relevant. Whether my patient is still in respiratory distress, is maintaining a saturation less than 90, is having hypercarbia, a plateau pressure of more than 30. My patient is still hemodynamically unstable. I'm just suspecting myocardial ischemia or depressed mental status in these patients. My patient is not breathing well. He's maintaining a respiratory rate of less than 10. A PEEP of more than 10 is still required. And a FiO2 of more than 0.5 is still required for the patient to maintain his saturation. means my patient is still not ready to wean. Okay, if my patient is ready to wean, what should we do? This is a special thing which we do in like we usually do rapid shallow breathing index, usually our ICUs as well. But this is of utmost importance in COVID ARDS. I don't want to extubate my patient and again re-intubate him, because COVID ARDS patients are tend to go for re-intubation very much. So how to do this 2-minute breathing assessment? I see my patient is ready to be okay. I'll give him a 2-minute breathing assessment test. That is known as shallow breathing index test. How to do? I'll put my patient on pressure support mode, not control support mode, in which I'll keep lower down my pressure support above PEEP at 0. I'll keep my PEEP at 0. This means my patient is not having any ventilatory support. My patient is on his own for his breathing. Plus the benefit of putting my patient on pressure support with the tube in, I can see how my patient will respond if I extubate him without generating aerosol. I'm not giving him a TP's trial. I'm putting my patient is still on ventilator. All the HB filters, everything is attached. Still, I can assess my patient's work of breathing. So at the end of 2 minutes, we'll divide frequency by tidal volume. So tidal volume is in liters. It is not in ml. It is in liters. If I get a value less than 105, means yes, we can successfully wean the patient, and we'll go for spontaneously breathing trials. Our ventilator, ICU ventilators don't go till 0 for the pressure support. They'll have a minimum pressure support of 2. That is okay. That will help us overcome the pressure or the pressures or the resistance required to overcome the endotracheal tube. So that is completely fine. Our ICU ventilators don't go till 0. They will remain till 2. That is the lower limit for them. So, okay, my patient has passed my spontaneous breathing trial. Oh, sorry, my rapid shallow breathing index trial. I'll post my patient for spontaneous breathing trial now. So the first #1 criteria is there is improvement of the underlying condition that led to intubation. In my patient's ARDS, whether it's improving, only then I'll start this thing. If ARDS is still there, there's no point of extubating the patient. I'll have a failed extubation afterwards. Then my patient is relatively hemodynamically stable. That is a heart rate of less than 30. He's maintaining mean arterial pressure with minimal or with no vasopressor support. Then there is presence of cuff reflex. This can be elicited like when we suction the patient, when my suction hits the carina, my patient has some kind of cuff reflex. Cuff reflex means my patient can take care of his airway secretions and all. My patient won't aspirate now. So the burden of secretion is pretty less. I don't have to suction my patients every hourly or 2 hourly. I have enough adequate oxygenation, that is a saturation of more than 90 with FiO2 as low as 40% and a PEEP as low as 8. Yes, my patient is doing good. Then whether there is adequate ventilation for this patient. We take a ABG before, whenever we put my patient on spontaneous breathing trial, always take a ABG and look for pH and PCO2. It is well controlled. And then he's maintaining minimal ventilation. My ventilator is not giving him much of the support. He's breathing on his own. That means a pressure support of less than 10, a PEEP of less than 8. He's maintaining a tidal volume more than 5. He's having a respiratory rate of less than 35 and a FiO2 of less than 50. Always, if you are weaning your patient, don't give him much of the support. You'll have a wrong reading. You'll think that your patient is doing good, but that is your ventilator supporting him. If you are weaning the patient, supposedly before weaning my pressure support was at 10, I'll decrease it till 8, 9, 8, 7, 5 and see whether my patient is able to respond to that thing. If I'm keeping a pressure support of 15, I'm seeing whether my patient is doing good. He will do good. And once you extubate the patient will land up in re-intubation. Always give minimal support to the patient when you are extubating the patient. You have to see the work of breathing, actual work of breathing, whether my patient is able to take that decrease in the pressure support. So how can we give spontaneous breathing trial? Initially pre-COVID time, we used to use TPs. We just used to remove my patient from the ventilator, put T-piece and see whether my patient is maintaining saturation. T-piece is a big no in COVID ARDS or in COVID settings. Reason being, it has a maximum aerosol production. We will, supposedly my next bed patient is getting better. He will take aerosols from this patient and get bad again. Don't use T-piece in ARDS patients or COVID patients. So how can we give my patient a spontaneous breathing trial? Put him on ventilator. The same way we check for rapid shallow breathing index. Just don't give him anything. Put your patient on pressure control mode, pressure support mode, sorry, and decrease all the supports. Decrease PEEP to 0, decrease pressure support to 0. So my patient is not having anything. Plus, you can visualize his tidal volume. You can see his respiratory rate. You can see his minute ventilation. So you can visualize your patient on the screen. Plus, there is no aerosol generation. This is the best method which we use in COVID ARDS patients. And second being pressure support and CPAP. CPAP is mostly not 0:0 is the best spontaneous breathing trial strategy. So what is the maximum time we should give them? Minimum of 30 minutes and a maximum of 120 minutes. Don't go above 120 minutes. If my patient is doing good in 2 hours, he'll be better off extubated rather than intubated. So 120 minutes is the maximum time. In our institute, we use 120 minutes actually. Okay. So what is the criteria for failed spontaneous breathing trial? My patient, when I decreased his support, his respiratory rate increased more than 35. His oxygen saturation started decreasing. My patient become having tachycardia or systolic blood pressure increased more than 180 or decreased less than 90. My patient becomes anxious. There is increase in the support which I have to give to my patient. And my patient started complaining of chest pain. Yes, my patient has failed the spontaneous breathing trial. Put him back on the control mode or the ventilatory strategy we were using previously. Put him back on this and try like some other time. My patient is not ready to extubate. So same extubation criteria is my patient has now passed the spontaneous breathing trial. He's maintaining a saturation of 90%. He's having cough sufficient to clear his secretions. He's not requiring suctioning every 2 hourly. He's able to clear out his secretions. He's hemodynamically stable. He's conscious and cuff leak is present. So how to check the cuff leak? Just deflate the cuff and see whether you can feel the air leak. If yes, do it. Don't do this thing in COVID ARDS patients. It will lead to aerosol generation. So this step is avoided in ARDS COVID patients. Cuff leak is avoided in COVID patients. So extubation criteria is the same what we follow in normal extubation in ICUs. But what is the modification in COVID ARDS? So how to extubate in COVID-19? Usually when we in ICUs, we extubate the patient and then apply O2. No, in COVID ARDS, first apply oxygen via nasal prongs, or if you have high flow nasal cannulas, that is the best. If not, okay, apply nasal prongs at a rate of 4 liters to 5 liters, above which my patient will be not be very comfortable with the flows. As soon as I extubate the patient, apply a surgical mask. Immediately apply a surgical mask and ensure everyone in the room is wearing PPE. If not, then that person should, that is obvious that everyone will be wearing a PPE. But yes, this is a big thing. Supposedly we found a COVID patient in our SICU. If we are extubating him, always see everyone is wearing a PPE. It's a high aerosol generating procedure. So these are the ventilator screen when my patient was ready to wean. So, okay. In this, my patient was on control mode at present. He was having we were delivering him a tidal volume of 400. He was taking a tidal volume of 400 approx. We were delivering him a respiratory rate of 22. He was taking a respiratory rate of 27, well enough. My PEEP is very minimal. My PEEP is at 5. My FiO2 is at 50%. So yes. And my peak pressure is pretty low, 22. Yes. Should we start weaning for this patient? Ideally, yes. This is a very good candidate for weaning. But what should we do before shifting him to support mode? Always take a ABG. What we supposedly, when we put him on support system, when we take ABGs at that time, we should have a baseline ABG, what I was dealing with and what I am dealing it with now. Always take a ABG before shifting him or her on support system. So this is the same patient. This patient was now shifted to a pressure support mode. We can see we kept a pressure support above PEEP at 10. Okay. FiO2 of 40% and a PEEP of 5. He was generating good tidal volumes of 380 to 400. But this 33 respiratory rate was a hindrance. When we see as I already told you, respiratory rate should be less than 30 or less than 35. This patient had a respiratory rate of 33. Always look for causes other than this thing, hypoxia or something. In this patient, it was mostly due to surgical pain. The patient was having an increased respiratory rate. So we gave him tramadol, we gave him paracetamol, his respiratory came down to 20, 25. His peak is very low. That's why I know that, yes, my patient is not having something respiratory related. It is due to some other cause. Peak is just 16. Everything was good. My patient was again weaned down. This was pre-extubation. This ventilator screen is pre-extubation. We can see, I don't know whether you can see the screen very well, but we decreased the FiO2 till less 25%. That is the lower limit which we can keep in our ventilator. 25. PEEP is at 5. Pressure support is at 5. He's generating good tidal volumes. Yes. Will my patient tolerate extubation? Yes. My patient is showing good response to my decreased support system. So should we extubate this patient? Yes, this is the best patient to extubate now. So what are the government of Maharashtra guidelines for ventilatory strategies? So first thing, when to admit the patient in ICU. First thing, when the physician thinks, yes, there is need of mechanical ventilation, shift the patient to ICU immediately. There is need of vasopressors. My patient is having a respiratory rate of more than 25, a PO2 of less than 60 or a saturation of less than 85. My patient is having a platelet count of less than 50,000. Multilobular infarcts, that is my patient is now going in ARDS, severe ARDS rather. And hypothermia and hypotension. This is mostly due to MODS. My patient will have multi-organ dysfunction due to ARDS, COVID ARDS. COVID is a multi-organ disease. That's why my patient lands up in different kinds of like uremia due to renal injury, ventilatory sports, like it affects the lungs, hypotension due to carditis in these things, COVID patients. So yes. So this is the same thing which I already discussed. So what are the ventilatory protocols for these patients? This is also Government of Maharashtra protocols. They say, okay, if my patient is having a PaO2 by FiO2 less than 300, having bilateral patchy infiltrates, there's no clinical evidence of left atrial hypertension, and is diagnosed with ARDS. So start him on ventilator. How to start him on ventilator? First thing, as I already discussed, put him on predicted body weight. Predicted body weight is the best to deliver him the tidal volume. Then set the ventilator settings to tidal volume. Initial settings is at 6 ml per kg. We can either decrease or increase accordingly. Then see, now the oxygenation goals. We should keep PaO2 of 55 to 80 with the oxygen saturation of 88 to 95%. So they say use a minimum PEEP of 5, but you can and consider the use of incremental PEEP. As I already explained, incremental PEEP, how to give incremental PEEP. Even Government of Maharashtra is saying give incremental PEEP and see what is the best PEEP value for the patient. Keep a plateau pressures of less than 30, already explained. Check plateau pressures by 0.5 seconds of inspiratory pause. already explained how to see the plateau pressures. We have to give him an inspiratory pause. Even Maharashtra government said, put a plateau pressure, see the plateau pressures always. If the plateau pressure remains above 30, then tidal volume is to be decreased by 1 ml per kg. As you remember, we discussed the first ventilator screen. My patient were having high plateau pressures. We decreased the tidal volume. Even Maharashtra government says decrease tidal volume, and minimum we can go is 4 ml per kg. Okay. Then yes, role of high flow nasal cannula, sir, NIV. I'll be discussing in like later slides. And then consider proning for this patient. Always consider proning for this patient. So coming to non-invasive ventilation and high flow nasal cannulas. So what are the guidelines? Oh. So these are different societies which gave guidelines. SSC is Surviving Sepsis Campaign, which is doing very good work in COVID ARDS. They say yes, use high flow nasal cannulas and use NIV. Even WHO says the same. ANZIC says Australian and New Zealand Intensive Care Society. They do not recommend NIV, and they have shown very good results in treating COVID patients. New Zealand has a very low rate of COVID mortality. So yes, they don't support NIV. And then this is a New York hospital which is against NIV. And Tufts is also a hospital in America which also does not support NIV. And this is a UK hospital, women's hospital. This does not support nasal high flow or NIV. Actually, they believe in early intubation and recruiting the lung. As I already explained, I have 7 days period. That first 7 days is the golden period I can recruit the lung. If I miss that period, I won't be able to recruit the lung. I'll be telling you the Maharashtra government protocols as well. But what are the technical aspects of NIV or high flow nasal cannulas? So in NIV, I'm using cold oxygen or cold air, which is coming from my central supplies and giving it to the patient. So heat is variable. But in high flow nasal cannulas, I can set a temperature of 31 to 37 degrees C, which is very well tolerated by the patient. Plus, I add certain saturation to this thing. So it's not a dry air. My gas is humidified. It is well tolerated by the patient. Flow, I can keep a continuous flow of 60 liters per minute. All the high flow nasal cannulas which has been built till date gives us the limit of 60 liters per minute. I like to explain this thing once. Already explained, my peak inspiratory flow is 20 liters per minute. If I'm spontaneously breathing, my peak inspiratory flow is 20. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, I'll continue, ma'am. Okay. So if we are giving him, if my patient is developing a pressures of peak inspiratory flow of 20 to 30 liters per minute, we are giving him flow as 60 liters. I'm overpowering all the peak inspiratory flow. This is the best way to give 100% FiO2 in a non-invasive setting. In a non-invasive setting, nasal high flow cannulas can give 100% FiO2, can deliver 100% FiO2. So if we see the indication of NIV, if my patient is in acute hypercarbic respiratory failure, ARDS comes well below. It's not a treatment for ARDS patients. NIV, and so is in acute hypoxic respiratory failure. My ARDS comes well below in the line. So yes, I have certain problems with NIV. What are these? Why NIV is so challenging in ARDS, especially COVID ARDS? First of all, there is severe oxygenation defect. I'll require more PEEP. I cannot deliver more PEEP with this. My NIV mask will have a lot of leak and my patient desaturates. This is the actual thing, ma'am, which all the residents which have been working in COVID ICUs has seen, that patients on NIV desaturate very soon. Why? Yes, because of this reasons only. I don't have a good leak. I'm not giving them good PEEP. So I'm not recruiting my lung very well. Second is my patient will have a high minute volume. My patient will be tachypnic. It's hard to reach to meet that demands, and it's hard to synchronize my ventilator with that now. My patient is a stiff lung patient, so which will require a very high inspiratory pressure, which is very difficult to achieve if I don't have a good fitting mask. Plus my patients are very sick. Most of the COVID patients are MODS patients. I don't think NIV is a good strategy for them. And my patient have a prolonged respiratory failure. Unlike normal ARDS, COVID patients have a worse type of ARDS which require longer period of ventilation.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Simarpreet.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Any more slides? I was asking you constantly.
Ma'am,
Should
sorry.
we divide it into?
Ma'am, no, ma'am. We are about to end, ma'am. About 5-6 slides left, ma'am.
Yeah, because it is too lengthy now. You are presenting it very well, but it is too lengthy.
Ma'am, only 5-6 slides left, ma'am. Only 5-6 slides left, ma'am.
Okay, I mean, finish off quickly because 1 hour is the thing, you know.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Only
yeah,
6 slides left, ma'am.
You are presenting very well.
Thank you, ma'am.
All these Gini criteria you have done nicely. Prone ventilation figure was nice.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
And after you finish, I'll tell Chaya madam that
yes,
you should have you should present this in ISA Pimpri Chinchwad.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
so I'll tell Chaya.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank
Chaya?
you. Only 6 slides left, ma'am. I'll finish it. I'll finish
madam. Okay, we can have this. Actually, all 3 lectures we can present, madam.
Correct. We make a lecture series
and present Maya.
Yeah,
we can present all these 3 lectures.
Yeah.
Okay,
because Simarpreet's figures are very nice. I mean, prone ventilation and recruitment.
Okay, madam. At least we can have a session with Simarpreet.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll see it afterwards. Chaya, I've got a college council meeting afterwards. So you can continue, right?
Yeah, we are listening, madam. We will
only 6 slides left, ma'am. Only 6 slides left, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. I'm here, but I'm just telling you. Yeah.
Okay,
Continue.
Okay.
So, what is the role of high flow nasal cannulas? We don't have high flow nasal cannulas in our institute till now, but I guess they will be coming very soon. So the betterment of this is it keeps the inspiratory flow at high rates. As I already explained, 60 liters per minute. I can deliver 100% FiO2. It flushes the nasopharynx. There is no rebreathing of CO2. It improves the ventilatory efficiency. It decreases the dead space and decreases the respiratory rate, decreases workout breathing. And yes, it has been scientifically proven that the inspiratory flow rates of 60 liters per minute can give us a PEEP of 6 to 7. So, which is good for the patient. So this is how high flow nasal cannula looks like. We have a flow meter, we have a O2 plus air blender. We can set the FiO2 in this. How much FiO2 do we want to give? We have a humidifier, as I already explained. We have a heated tube. Like our normal nasal cannulas, our nasal cannulas are very thin. Nasal cannulas for high flow nasal ventilation is very thick. So there is very less resistance. So what are the advantages of high flow nasal cannulas? So it is well tolerated. Secretions are hydrated, so it does not lead to decrease drying up my mucosa. Better oxygenation than standard O2. Improves ventilatory efficiency and decreases the workout breathing. It is very good for self-proning, ma'am. My patient can self-prone in nasal cannulas, but it is very difficult to keep a mask and ask the patient to prone himself. It may avoid intubation, possible better outcome by avoiding intubations, and good for palliation. Okay. So in a RCT was done to compare high flow nasal cannulas, NIV, and normal O2. So they saw that when we were using high flow nasal cannula, this was done by Frat JP in 2015. There was a Middle East severe respiratory syndrome as well, which is thought to be equivalent to COVID, but it was in the Middle East only. So this study was done in Middle Eastern countries, which they thought high flow nasal cannulas decreased intubation percentage. Patients were not intubated very oftenly. 20 free days were high, and mortality rate was very less. So high flow nasal cannulas or high flow nasal oxygenation is very much important. But what are the concerns with high flow nasal cannulas in COVID patients? It's not a pressure generated. And if my patient is requiring like a COPD patient or cardiogenic pulmonary edema, which happens in ARDS, it is difficult to administer this. Plus, we might delay intubation thinking that my patient is good. And yes, it's a very high aerosol generating mortality. I'll be telling you. So this is a study very recently done, which explained the aerosol generating procedures and risk of transmission. So high flow nasal cannulas, if at a rate of 60, produce distances at a distance of 17 to 20 centimeters. So it is very high. A simple O2 mask at 15 liters, we don't keep O2 mask at 15 liters, produces or dispenses at 11.2. And Venturi mask was thought to be it was thought that we can use Venturi mask. It will provide 60% FiO2. We can give a fixed device. But Venturi mask is a big no because of these things. We can see distance of dispersion. It is well above 40 centimeters. It is not a good strategy to give O2 from. So how can we prevent this? It's a very simple trick. When we are applying oxygen to the patient, just apply a surgical mask on the patient. That will deal with 90% of the things, aerosol generating things. How? Just look at this image. The image on left hand side is when my patient was applied a mask and given O2, and the image on right hand side, above and below both, are when my patient was given oxygen therapy without a mask. With mask, there is no or very minimal aerosol generation, and without a mask, my patient can have aerosol generation. So it's a very simple trick which I like to tell all my juniors to apply in the ward. As my juniors are posted in ward, please apply a normal surgical mask to every patient whom they are giving oxygen therapy. So what is the clinical application of NIV in COVID patient? Ma'am, only 2 slides left. I'll sum up very soon. So yes, many of the patients that we have seen have a O2 device at home now. Due to this pandemic, there was panic buying. So if my patient is already taking CPAP or NIV at home, my COPD patient getting COVID, yes, my patient will help, NIV will help. Or a post-extubation patient, or a do not intubate or a DNR patient, I'll apply NIV and see. So what is the clinical application of high flow nasal cannulas in COVID-19? Hypoxemic respiratory failure is one. Then post-intubation, post-extubation, and same, a DNR patient or a do not intubate patient. So is there a predictor that yes, my high flow nasal cannulas are not working? Yes, there is. What is it? This is a very recent study by Roca. In 2019, he predicted that is there a point when we need to say enough is enough? We need to stop high flow nasal cannula and intubate a patient. It is known as ROX index. So we take saturation of the patient and divide it by the FiO2 in liters and divided by respiratory rate. So just take an example of, supposedly my patient was having a saturation of 95% with a FiO2 of 0.6. Came out to be 158. I divided by the respiratory rate. It came out to be 32 and a ROX of 4.9. The limit is, the criteria is 4. If my respiratory rate is going up, then my ROX will be less. My denominator is high. Means my patient is not having a good response to my high flow nasal cannulas. And he will have a ROX score of less than 4. Immediately intubate the patient. My patient won't do, my high flow nasal cannula is not doing any good to the patient. Rather, I am wasting time for him. So last slide, what are the government of Maharashtra guidelines for supplementing O2 therapy? So they say give supplemental oxygen therapy immediately to patients with severe COVID and respiratory distress. Initiate oxygen therapy at a rate of 5 liters per minute and titrate flows to reach a saturation of 90%. And in non-pregnant, and 92 to 96% in a pregnant patient. So, okay, they say that all the areas where patients are taken care of should be equipped with pulse oximeter, a functioning oxygen system, disposable single-use oxygen delivery interfaces like nasal cannula, simple face mask, and reservoir bag. So this is of utmost importance. Use contact precaution when handling contaminated oxygen interface of patients with COVID-19. Don't simply go and
Hello, Simarpreet.
yes, ma'am. Last
Hello,
slide, ma'am.
Simarpreet. No,
Yes, ma'am.
wait.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, after you finish,
Yes, ma'am.
Mary madam will ask you the questions first.
Okay,
After
ma'am.
that, Chaya madam, then Aparna,
Okay,
then
ma'am.
Shilpa.
Okay.
According to her seniority. Okay?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Nice presentation, huh?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Continue.
Yes, ma'am. So what are the
Yeah.
so I was telling, don't just simply go and start adjusting their nasal cannulas and start touching here and there. Don't do like this. Just as I already told you, apply a surgical mask. If my patient, agar unka mask hill bhi gaya, just adjust it from the surgical mask only. Don't touch the nasal cannulas or don't touch the oxygen mask, please. So Government of Maharashtra guidelines for NIV. So they say high flow nasal cannula or non-invasive ventilation when respiratory distress or hypoxemia of the patient cannot be elevated after receiving standard oxygen therapy. That is my normal O2 Hudson mask or nasal cannulas. High flow nasal cannulas therapy or NIV can be considered. Patients with hypercarbia, that is exacerbation of COPD or cardiogenic pulmonary edema or multi-organ dysfunction, abnormal mental status, should generally not receive high-flow nasal cannulas. Although emerging data suggests that high-flow nasal cannula may be safe in patients with mild to moderate non-worsening hypercapnia. So one thing which I have marked in red here, I'll be reading it out. They say if condition of the patient is not improving in short time, that is 1 to 2 hours, tracheal intubation and invasive mechanical ventilation should be used in timely manner. Even Government of Maharashtra is saying this, that don't waste your time, or like if your patient is getting better, okay, go on with that thing. But if your patient is not getting better, you are wasting the recruitment golden period, that is 7 days or 1 week. Don't waste that thing. Just intubate the patient, put him on neuromuscular blockade, sedate him, use recruitment maneuver. Probably your patient will do better. So summary of non-invasive techniques is nasal high flow flow has advantage of COVID patients and may avoid intubation. Yes. NIV is used like COPD patient coming with the COVID. Aerosol mitigation appears to be effective, but exposure is always a risk. Always take care, fully don yourself in PPE. Critically important to use meticulous PPE techniques, and also important not to delay needed intubation. All the research articles which came till date showed that many of the patients were delayed intubation. Number one reason was the risk for the doctors, ma'am. The doctors themselves were scared that we'll get the infection. This is one of the major risks which we think, and that's why we are delaying intubations in COVID patients. So summarizing, this is the last slide. It's not the machine who treats the patient, it's the brain behind the machine. Always see your ventilator settings. If your patient is not doing good, do change it. Only manage airway if you are wearing a PP. Daily assess your patient for weaning. Prone positioning and lateral position should also be used in non-intubated patients. Early intubation will help you reduce and don't delay intubation in these patients. These are my references, and thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Very well done, Simarpreet.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you, ma'am.
Well. Yeah. All your slides were good, Simarpreet.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
And you explained it very well, like prone ventilation, then recruitment of recruitment strategies for ARDS, and then weaning was nicely explained in detail.
Thank you.
And good slides. Okay, so it was very well presented. Only thing is that it's a little big. We can repeat it also.
Yes,
and let's see, it was a nice presentation. Okay, now Mary madam will ask you questions, then Chaya madam, then Aparna madam. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm there on the thing. You continue, huh?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.